is the blanking. A piece of sheet metal is removed from the largest piece of stocks, and removed piece is not the scrap, it is called as the useful part. So that is called as the blanking process. We have already learned the blanking and punchings in the previous session. We just recap the blanking. In that blanking, we have to use that blank for the further operation. So with the help of punch, we have to make it the blank, and that blank is generally useful for the regular applications. So that process is called as the blanking process. We have to using the different type of punch for making the different blank, and that whatever the blank we have to require it, we have to make a die of that particular cavity, and with the help of punch we have to cut it that blank and collect that blank and use that blank for the particular application. So that process is called as the blanking process. Then we are seen the some fine blanking process. In the fine blanking process, we have to using the some ejectors. So whatever the blank we have to cut it from the sheet metals, we have to easily remove that. For that purpose, we are generally using the some secondary forces, and that will be generally applied by the some lower sides of ejectors, and we have to put it the some cushioning pins below the on your dies, and due to that we have to get it the some fine banking operation. Then we see the punching operation. See the figure of your punching. So a lot of time they can ask what is the difference between the blanking and punchings. So punching is generally done with the help of your punch, but whatever the scrap or the slug, it will be produced due to the punching. That is not useful in case of punching operation, but in case of blanking operations, whatever the blank which has to be cut from the your workpiece, that is useful. So that is the basic difference between the blanking and punching operations. ब्लँकिंग मध्ये काय करतो आपण की जे काही शीट मेटल असेल त्या शीट मेटल वरती आपण असा पंच यूज करतो की ज्याची आपल्याला ब्लँक पाहिजे, आणि तो जो शीट मेटल मधनं जितकाही तुमचा पार्ट कट होत असेल, दॅट इज कॉल्ड ॲज द ब्लँक, अँड दॅट ब्लँक इज युजफुल फॉर द फर्दर ऑपरेशन्स. मग दुसरं पुढे काही ऑपरेशन करायचं असेल तर तुम्हाला ती ब्लँक जी असेल ती युजफुल असते. दॅट इज कॉल्ड ॲज द ब्लँकिंग. इन केस ऑफ पंचिंग, पंचिंग आर जनरली डन ऑन द शीट मेटल टू कट द पर्टिक्युलर पार्ट्स. तुम्हाला एखादा होल कट करायचा आहे तर तुम्ही काय करतात, यू हॅव टू मेकिंग द punch of that particular size of hole, and then apply the some forces with the help of your ram, and due to that it will be cut the sheet metals. That cut part is called as the scrap, and the previous in the previous operation cut part is called as the blank, and the blank is generally useful for the further application, but scrap is not useful for the further application. So this is the basic difference. That means the output product of the punching is the scrap, the output product of blanking is the useful product. So see these figures. In that figure there is some lower dies, and forces act through the some punches. That punches are generally made with the help of different material, different size and shapes. That is generally depends upon the based on applications. So see the punching or piercing operations. Here is the one sheet. We have to doing some circular hole on that sheet. Due to the punching, we have to remove that particular sheet metals materials, and due to that we have to see the some hole on the sheet metal, and that operation is called as the punching operation. Whatever the output product we have to get it from the sheet metals, that is called as the scrap, or it is the waste of materials. The typical punching operation in which a cylindrical punch places a holes into the sheets. तर बऱ्याच वेळा आपल्याला नंबर ऑफ तुम्हाला क्लाइडिंग जे असेल तर यू हॅव टू जनरली अटॅच द सम क्लाइडिंग, सम डोअर्स, सम hinges on your doors. So that times it will be required the some holes on the doors, and that holes are generally made up of with the help of your punching or punch. So that times we have to using the different type of punch, circular punch, then I section punch, or some irregular section of punch, and from that we have to get the some punching operation. This is the one simple operation, and generally it is done on the after the your drawing operations. These operations are generally performed after the drawings. That means initially we have to do the some drawing operation on the sheet metals, and after that we are generally carried out that different type of operation on your sheet metal. Then see the blanking and punching. This is the best example for the what is the difference between the blanking and punching. So initially in the first stage we have to take an as the one sheet. That sheet is forwarded to the one press machines. There is the some die and punch arrangement. After the punchings we have to see it. There is the one output product that is called as the blank. That process is called as the blanking process. In the secondary, in the third figure, you have to see that we are again using the some punch, but here we have to doing the operations on the sheet metal and we have to get the some washers, and the output product is nothing but the scrap. So this is the general difference between the blanking and punching. एक शीट दिलेले, एक शीट वरती त्यांनी काय केलेलं आहे पहिल्यांदा फर्स्ट स्टेज मध्ये बँकिंग केलेले. तर ब्लँकिंग केल्याने काय झालंय, त्यांना एक गोल सर्क्युलर पार्ट भेटला. इट कॅन गेट द वन सर्क्युलर पार्ट, बट वी हॅव टू मेड इट द वॉशर्स. But washer is the hollow part. So whatever the blank we have to take in it, we have to carry that blank and put it that blank on the below the punch, and due to the punching operation it will be give the some hollow shape, and that hollow shape is nothing but the washers. That means whatever the blank we have to cut it from the sheet metal, that is the useful product, and that from that blank we have to get the some washers in the punching operation. And after the punching there is some scrap is it will be removed from the your operation, and that wastage is nothing but the scrap. So this is the general difference between the blanking and punching. म्हणजे जे काय तुमचं ब्लँकिंग मधलं आउटपुट प्रोडक्ट येईल त्या प्रोडक्ट पासून आपल्याला जर सब प्रोडक्ट बनवता आले, त्या प्रोडक्ट पासून आपल्याला दुसरा काही प्रोडक्ट जो असतो दुसरा काही प्रोडक्ट बनवता आला तर आपण त्याला जनरली काय म्हणतोय तुमची. म्हणजे आता इथे ह्या केसमध्ये काय केलं त्यांनी, तर आपल्याकडे त्यांनी पहिल्यांदा एक शीट मेटल दिलं, त्या शीट मेटल वरती आपण काय केलं ब्लँकिंग ऑपरेशन परफॉर्म केलं. आफ्टर द ब्लँकिंग वी हॅव टू गेट द वन ब्लँक, and that blank is useful for making the washers. After the making of washers there are some wastage of material we have to remove from the your dies, so that is called as the scrap. So we have to, there are two operation we are perform over here. One is the blanking and another one is the punching. So this is the common difference. Now we are seeing the difference between the punching, blanking and piercing. This difference is already given in your books. We have to take it from there. A punch in the punching. In punching operation, the parts of metals sheet punch and remove its scrap, and the remaining part is the required products. In the blanking operation, the parts removed from the sheet is the main product or called as the blank. Piercing, it is similar to the punching operations or punching process, in which a small cylindrical hole cuts from the sheet by using the circular punches. The sheet obtained after the cutting out of the circular shape is main product. Second difference, in punching, shear force is given on the punch. Blanking, shear force is given on the dies, and piercing, shear force is given on the punch. Third difference, the hole produces is the waste product in case of punching. In case of blanking, remaining sheet is waste, and piercing, hole produces is the waste product which is the negligible. Fourth difference, the material handling is difficult and the final product is large in size. In case of blanking, material handling is easy as the final product is the smaller in size. In case of piercing, material handling is difficult as final product large in the size. And last, clearance is not considered while performing the operation in case of punching. In case of blanking, clearance on the both the sides is considered while performing the blanking operation. And in case of piercing, clearance is not considered while performing the operation. And last one, it is used for manufacturing of IC engine, cylinder head, packing, foundation part, plates of machine, etc. That is the example of punching. In case of blanking, it is used for manufacturing of ring, washers, leveling plate, etc. In case of piercing, it is used for manufacturing of automobile parts, kitchen applications, aerospace industries, etc. This is the general difference between the punching, blanking, and piercing. Now, next operation is the trimming operation. See the figure of trimming operations. After the trimming, we have to get it the one trimmed part. Actually, before the trimming operation, the upper part scrap is connected with your trimmed part. After the trimming, we have to cut it the extras part after the deep drawing operation, and that process is called as the trimming. Trimming is nothing but the we have to cut the that particular extra part from the sheet metal, punching away excess materials from the perimeters of the parts, such as the trimming the planche from the drawn curve. आता बघा इथे एक फिगर दिलेली तुमची, एक डीप ड्रॉइंग ऑपरेशन त्यांनी काय केलेलं आहे, परफॉर्म केलेलं आहे. This deep drawing operation, there are some extras of sheet metal which will be connected with your top end. That extras of material we have to cut it, and that cutting is generally done with the help of your press machines, and that times we have to cut that extra part of the sheet metals. That process is called as the trimming process. This is the one process we are generally carried out on the sheet metal forming processes. Then next process, parting process. If you have to see the figure, this is the figure of parting. We have to separate out the two different parts. That time we have to doing the some parting operation, separating a part from the remaining sheets by punching away the materials between the parts. That if you have to see the figure, there are two parts of the single sheet metals, and remaining part is called as the scrap. In the lower side, there are three parts. In that case, one part is separated out, second part is your parting, and third part is your scrap. Due to the parting operation, we have to cut it the single sheet metals in the two different parts, and there are some wastage which can be collected after the parting operation. That is nothing but your scrap. So parting are generally doing on the different sheet metals for the separation purpose, or we have to separate out the two different parts from a sheet metal. So that times we are generating some parting operation. Next operation is the slitting. Here is one another operations. Cutting straighten the lines in the sheets, no scrap material is be produced. आता हे स्लिटिंगचं तुम्हाला एक बेस्ट एक्झाम्पल सांगतो मी. आता किती लोकांनी स्कॉर्पिओ बघितलंय नवीन आलेल्या महिंद्राच्या, स्कॉर्पिओ असतील किंवा नवीन व्हेकल्स आहे बघा, जर त्याच्यामध्ये तुम्ही जर त्याचं बोनेट बघितलं स्कॉर्पिओचं, त्या स्कॉर्पिओच्या बोनेटच्या वरती स्लिटिंग ऑपरेशन केलं असतं, ज्याच्यामध्ये तुमची इयर जी असेल ना, ती इयर काय होईल, तिथं जेव्हा तुमचं व्हेकल रन होतंय तर ती इयर तिथनं काय होईल, पास होईल, आणि तुमचं जे इंजिन असेल ना, ते इंजिन जनरली क्लीन होईल. दॅट मीन्स इन दॅट केस वी हॅव टू डुईंग द सम स्लिटिंग ऑपरेशन्स. We should not remove, we should not scrap the materials. We just give the some particular shape of that materials. Cutting straight lines in the sheet, no scrap materials is produced. That means whatever the sheet metals which will be performed, we have to cut it, and we have to give the some shape of that material, and due to that, that operation is called as the slitting operations. This is the best example of the Scorpio, or if you have to see in the some Mahindra vehicles that can doing the some slitting operation, and that are generally useful for the cooling purpose of engine. Next operation, lancing operation. See the figure of lancing. This is your actual lancing. Lancing and slitting are just similar, creating the partial cuts in the sheets so that no material is be removed. In case of slitting and in case of lancing, we should not remove the material. That means we should not waste the material, or we should not take the scrap from that materials. The material is left attached to the bends and form of shapes such as the tab, vent or lurus. आता बऱ्याच वेळा आपण बघतो, कुठे बघतो आपण, तर तुम्ही जर हे बघितलं काय कूलर्स बघतात तुम्ही, तर तिथं बऱ्याच वेळा काय असतात का काही पार्ट जो असतो तुमचा शीट मेटलचा तो अटॅच असतो. दॅट इज कॉल्ड एज द लान्सिंग ऑपरेशन्स. दॅट इज द युअर लान्सिंग ऑपरेशन. बऱ्याच वेळा आपल्याला काही इयर किंवा काही ज्या आपल्याला असेंब्ली करायची असेल तर बऱ्याच वेळा काय करतो आपण का काही जो पार्ट्स वी हॅव टू कट इट, बट इट विल बी कनेक्टेड विथ द युअर ओरिजिनल पार्ट. सो दॅट प्रोसेस इज नथिंग बट युअर lancing process. Next operation, your notching operations. See the figure of notchings. This is your notching process. Punching the edge of the sheet, forming a notch in the shape of portion of the punch. In this case, in the notching, we have to generally cut the edge of the sheet metals on the different shapes as per the requirement or as per our designs. That process is called as the notching process. If you have to see these figures, in that case we have to using the different kinds of punch. One is the circular punch, another one is the triangular punch, one is the some rectangular punch we have to use. With the help of that notchings, we have to doing the some notching operation on the corner or edge of the sheet metals. These operations are generally doing for connecting the some other parts on your previous parts. So that times we are generally some doing the some notching operations. Then second one is the perforating operations. See the figure of your perforating operations. Punching a close arrangement of large number of holes in the single operation, that is called as the perforating operations. आता एकाच शीट मेटलवर तुम्हाला नंबर ऑफ होल जे असेल एकाच रो किंवा एकाच कॉलम मध्ये करायची, तर आपण त्याला काय म्हणतो तुम्ही परफोरेटिंग ऑपरेशन. पंचिंग अ लार्ज नंबर ऑफ होल्स इन अ सिंगल ऑपरेशन, दॅट इज कॉल्ड एज द परफोरेटिंग ऑपरेशन. आता परफोरेटिंग ऑपरेशन कुठे यूज होतं जनरली आपले शीट मेटल्स, कुठे आपण त्या हे करतो आपण बघा बऱ्याच वेळा आपण तुम्ही हे करतात बघा ते मशीन्स यूज करता आपण हार्वेस्टर वगैरे. त्या हार्वेस्टर मध्ये जे काही तुमचे जे समजा आता तुम्ही सोयाबीन काढतात, ज्वारी काढतात, मका काढतात, तर वेगवेगळ्या तिथे काय असतात वेगवेगळे होल्स असतात. these holes are generally made it with help of your perforating operation. That is the practical example of your perforating operations. A number of hole we are generally performing with the help of your single stroke. So that process is called as the perforating processes. Then next one is the nobbling. Next operation is the nobbling operations. Punching a series of small overlapping split or hole along a path of cut out of the larger countered shape. That is called as the perforating operation. That means we have to doing the series of operation, and with the help of that series of operation we have to get it the one particular shape. That is called as the nobbling processes. म्हणजे जर तुम्हाला एखादी डिझाईन करायची एखाद्या शीट होती, तर बऱ्याच वेळा काय करतो आपण नंबर ऑफ सिरीज ऑफ ऑपरेशन परफॉर्म करतो आणि त्याच्यामधनं आपण काय करतो जनरली जे तुमचा रिक्वायर्ड शेप जो असतो तो शेप जनरली मॅन्युफॅक्चर करतो. आता इथे जर बघितलं तुम्ही या शीट मेटलवरती त्यांनी एक एस कट केलेला आहे, बट दे कॅन डुईंग द नंबर ऑफ ऑपरेशन्स फॉर मेकिंग दॅट एस. एस इज द फायनल कॅव्हिटी ऑफ देअर on the sheet metals. For making that S, they can doing the number of punching operations on the your sheet metals, and after that finally he have to get the some S shape, and that process is the they can done that S with the help of your nobbling processes. Next one is the your embossing processes. You are just familiar with these embossing processes. In the embossing processes we have to make the some emboss or design on the outer sheets. Certain designs are embossed on the sheet metals, or punch and dies are of the same counters but it in the opposite directions. आता बऱ्याच वेळा काय होतं का एम्बॉसिंग करायची असते आपल्याला, तर एम्बॉसिंग मध्ये आपण काय करतो की जी काही तुमची एम्बॉसिंग असतील ती तुमच्या शीट मेटलच्या वरच्या साईडला होते. That times punch and dies are of the same counter but in the opposite direction. म्हणजे जर कधी आपल्याला शीट मेटल वरती तुम्हाला जर एम्बॉसिंग करायचं असेल तर तुमची डाईस जी असेल त्या डाईसच्या लोअर साईडला तुमचे पंच असतील, आणि त्या लोअर साईडला पंच असल्यामुळे जेव्हा त्याच्या लोअर साईडचे पंच जेव्हा ओपन होतील तर त्यावेळेस तुमची काय होईल जनरली एम्बॉसिंग जी असेल ती एम्बॉसिंग तुमच्या शीट मेटल वरती तुम्हाला बघायला भेटेल. बाकी प्रोसेस मध्ये काय करतो आपण पंचिंग असेल, बँकिंग असेल, पिअर्सिंग असेल, स्लिटिंग असेल, तर पंच हे तुमच्या अप्पर साईड कडनं येतात, पण एम्बॉसिंग मधनं तुमचे पंच जे असेल ते लोअर साईड कडनं येतात, आणि त्याच्यामुळे जनरली काय होतं तुमच्या काहीतरी जी कॅव्हिटी असते ती कॅव्हिटी जनरली तुमच्या शीट मेटल जे असेल त्या शीट मेटल वरती तुम्हाला परफॉर्म करता येते. दॅट प्रोसेस इज कॉल्ड ॲज द एम्बॉसिंग प्रोसेस. आता एम्बॉसिंग कशासाठी करतो आपण जनरली, वी आर जनरली done the embossing on sheet metals for the decorative purpose. तर तुम्हाला काही एखादी शीट एखादी डिझाईन करायची ती डेकोरेटिव्ह पर्पज, कस्टमर जो असेल तो कस्टमर तुमच्या जे काही शीट मेटल असेल त्या शीट मेटल कडे किंवा जे काही तुम्ही ऍप्लिकेशन मॅन्युफॅक्चर करताय त्याच्याकडे अट्रॅक्ट व्हायला पाहिजे. तर बऱ्याच वेळा आपण काय करतो त्याच्यावरती डेकोरेटिव्ह पर्पज साठी आपण एम्बॉसिंग जे असेल ते एम्बॉसिंग ऑपरेशन आपण काय करतो जनरली परफॉर्म करतो. दिस इज युअर एम्बॉसिंग ऑपरेशन. नेक्स्ट ऑपरेशन इज द सेविंग ऑपरेशन. See the figure of this your saving operation, dies, sheet metals and punch. Shearing away a minimum materials from the edge of the feature of parts using the small dies clearance used to improve the accuracy of finished. The tolerance is of plus minus 0.025 mm as a possibles. आता बरेच वेळा काय होतं का आपण जेव्हा तुम्ही ड्रॉइंग ऑपरेशन करतात आफ्टर द ड्रॉइंग वी हॅव टू डूइंग द सम सेकंड ऑपरेशन दॅट इज युअर ट्रिमिंग ऑपरेशन extra part of the sheet metal we have to cut it in the your second process, that is your trimming. After the deep drawing processes we have to doing the some trimming process. In the trimming processes we have to cut the sheet metal extra sheet metal part, that is nothing but your scrap. After that we have to doing the some shaving processes. The sharp edge of the your sharp corner or sharp edge of sheet metal you have to convert it in this, you have to convert in this. Due to that times we are doing the some shaving operations. जे काही तुमचे कॉर्नर्स असतील, जे तुमच्या ट्रिमिंग ऑपरेशन मध्ये शार्प कॉर्नर जे तुमचे जनरेट होत आहेत, ते शार्प कॉर्नर तुम्हाला बेंड करायचे असेल किंवा ती शार्पनेस जी असेल ती तुम्हाला रिड्यूस करायची असेल तर त्या केसेस मध्ये जनरली काय करतो आपण शेविंग ऑपरेशन जे असेल ती शेविंग ऑपरेशन आपण डाईज आणि पंच अरेंजमेंट थ्रू जनरली परफॉर्म करतो. ते जनरल असतं तुमचं सेविंग ऑपरेशन्स. नेक्स्ट आहे तुमचं कट ऑफ ऑपरेशन्स. See the figure of your cutoff operation. We are doing some parting operations before the cutoff operation, and after the cutoff operation we have to connect these two parts, and that is nothing but your cutoff operation. Cutoff, separating the parts from the remaining sheets without producing any scrap. That means we should not produce any kinds of scrap from the sheet metal. That operation is nothing but the कट ऑफ ऑपरेशन. म्हणजे आपल्याला एकाच शीटला तुम्हाला दोन वेगवेगळ्या भागांमध्ये तुम्हाला कट करायचंय विदाउट प्रोड्युसिंग द स्क्रॅप. दॅट टाइम्स वी आर डुईंग द कट ऑफ ऑपरेशन ऑन द शीट मेटल. द पंच विल बी प्रोड्युस्ड अ कट लाईन दॅट मे बी स्ट्रेट, अँगल्ड ऑर कर्व्ड. आता तुम्हाला जी कट करायची ती डिपेंड्स अपॉन तुम्हाला कुठल्या कट करायचं, म्हणजे तुम्हाला स्ट्रेट लाईन कट करायची, अँगल मध्ये कट करायचंय, व्ही शेप कट करायचंय की कर्व कट करायचंय. कट ऑफ ऑपरेशन मध्ये काय होतंय फक्त you have to cut the sheet metals but you should not produce any kinds of scrap due to the cutting. म्हणणं जसं आपण काय करत होतो पंचिंग करत होतो, पंचिंग मध्ये बऱ्याच वेळा काय होत होतं तुमचं स्क्रॅप जे असेल ते स्क्रॅप तुम्हाला तिथं भेटत होतं. पण कटिंग ऑपरेशन मध्ये इथे काय भेटणार तुम्हाला कुठल्याही प्रकारचं स्क्रॅप जे असेल ते स्क्रॅप तुम्हाला भेटणार नाही. तुम्ही फक्त कटिंग ऑपरेशन जे असेल ते कटिंग ऑपरेशन जनरल तुम्ही इथं परफॉर्म करशाल विदाउट गेटिंग द स्क्रॅप ऑफ द शीट मेटल्स. नेक्स्ट वन इज द कॉइनिंग. You are already familiar with this process. And this is the 10 rupees coins, similar to the embossing with the difference that similar to the different impressions are obtained on the both the sides of the sheet metals. आता एम्बॉइजिंग मध्ये काय करत होतो आपण, एम्बॉइजिंग जनरली ही एकाच साइडवर नव्हती, ती लोअर साइडचे पंच असेल तुमच्या डाईजचे, एक अप्पर डाय असते आणि लोअर डाय असते. लोअर साइडच्या डायजवरचे पंच जेव्हा तुमचे ओपन होते, ज्यावेळेस तुम्ही त्याच्यावरती फोर्स ऍक्ट करताय तुमच्या शीट मेटलवरती, तर इम्प्रेशन क्रिएट होतं, तर ते होतं तुमचं एम्बॉइजिंग प्रोसेस. पण इथे काय होतंय जनरली तुमची ही जी प्रोसेस होती ही तुमच्या दोन्ही साइडला होता, दॅट इज कॉल्ड ॲज द कॉइनिंग प्रोसेसेस. म्हणजे इथे काय होतंय तुमचे दोन्ही साइडला जे काही इम्प्रेशन जे असेल, आपण जर एखाद्या डॉलर घेतला 1 रुपीज असेल 10 रुपीज असेल आता, तर तिथं जर बघा तर दोन्ही साइडला तुमच्याकडे काय बघतंय काहीतरी इम्प्रेशन जे असेल ते इम्प्रेशन आपल्याला ऑब्झर्व होतंय. मग ही काय एक सिमिलर आहे तुमच्या एम्बॉइजिंग प्रोसेस सारखी. इथे काय होतं दोन्ही साइडने काय होतं लोअर साइड आणि अप्पर साइड दोन्ही साइडला तुमचे पंच असतात, आणि ते दोन्ही साइडचे पंच काय करताय तुमचा जो काही शीट मेटल असतात त्या शीट मेटलवरती जे इम्प्रेशन जे असेल ते इम्प्रेशन काय करताय जनरेट करताय. and that process is called as the coining processes. That process is called as the coining process. Next one is the deep drawing process. आता आपण जस्ट ती स्टडी केलेली डीप ड्रॉइंग प्रोसेस जेव्हा आपण युनिट स्टार्ट केलं तर. परत एकदा सांगतो डीप ड्रॉइंग. डीप ड्रॉइंग इज द मेटल फॉर्मिंग प्रोसेसेस इन विच द शीट मेटल इज स्ट्रेचन्ड इनटू द डिझायर्ड शेप. A tool pushes the downward on the sheet metals, forcing it into a die cavity in the shape of the desired part. Now see the arrangement of your deep drawing. In that there is the one sheet which will be put on your lower dies, and for that purpose we are using some blank holder to hold the sheet metal. And after that, after the holding of sheet metal, we have to generally apply the forces with the help of your punch. Due to the application of forces, it will be get the one desired shape of the cavity without cracking, and that operation is nothing but your deep drawing operations. तुम्हाला कुठलाही पार्ट मॅन्युफॅक्चर करायचं असेल शीट मेटल प्रोसेसेस मध्ये, तर सगळ्यात पहिले तुमचा हाच ऑपरेशन परफॉर्म होतो, डीप drawings. After the deep drawings, you have to doing the different operation like the trimming, punching, piercing, notching. That like operation we are generally produced it. After the trimming, after the your deep drawing operations. See this figure of your deep drawing. We can produce this in the blank with the help of deep drawing. We can produce this the part with the help of your deep drawings. म्हणजे तुम्हाला जर ब्लँक बनवायचे असेल तर तुम्ही ती ब्लँक सुद्धा बनवू शकतात. त्या ब्लँक पासून आपण काय बनवतो, जनरली वॉशर जे असेल ते वॉशर्स असतील, प्लेट जे असतील त्या प्लेट आपण जनरली मॅन्युफॅक्चर करतो तुमच्या डीप ड्रॉइंग ऑपरेशन पासून. आणि दुसरे जर तुम्हाला वेगवेगळे पार्ट बनवायचे असेल, जसं कारच्या बॉडी असते, आपण कारची बॉडी बनवायसाठी सगळ्यात पहिले काय करतो, डीप ड्रॉइंग ऑपरेशन जे असेल ते